Hey everybody, welcome in. It's a new edition of Celtics Beat. Thrilled to have you here with us. With Evan Valenti, I'm Adam Kaufman. Our special guest today from WEEI, Justin Turpin. Looking forward to getting into all things Celtics, boys. I am. I mean, listen, if people are here, they expect Celtics and NBA talk, although it's a little difficult, admittedly, to not just spend this entire thing on the Patriots-Texans and getting ready for divisional round weekend as we sit here earlier on a Saturday before any of these four games have kicked off. It's exciting, right? I mean, the Celtics are exciting too. Don't get me wrong. Second place in the Eastern Conference, creeping up toward first, 25-15, coming off a win. There's a lot of good in the Boston Celtics world, but Turp, man, I'm pretty fired up for this football game.
Yeah, man, it's been too long. It's been too long since there's been divisional football, playoff football that they actually have a chance in. I know there was in the Mac Jones run, but nobody actually gave him a shot that year. Like this year, you actually feel like you have it, and it's just so nice to have a contending football team back again.
I'll make it a Celtics related thing, just because I've been asking this question to Barrett specifically, Kaufman, for the past couple of months, and this goes back to I think baseball season when Roman Anfernee was tearing it up and establishing himself as one of the best young players in baseball. I was having a conversation of like, is Roman Anfernee like the new young king of Boston? You have obviously the Jays have been here for a while, Pasternak's been here for a while, but Roman Anfernee was just and still is like just an unbelievable baseball player. And at that time, because the Red Sox were performing well and Drake May didn't have a great rookie season, I mean, obviously the coaching staff was a big part of that. But I was like, Roman Anfernee over Drake May. And I'm like, well, you forget football. Football can be a powerhouse in terms of driving conversation in any, region of the United States, never mind New England. And obviously, I think at this point, Drake May has like taken back the reins of the best young player in Boston and definitely the face of young athletes in Boston. But would he have to win the Super Bowl to steal Boston from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown? What do you think?
It's football's king, right? Football's the king of content. It's the king. Everybody plays fantasy or bets on football, or at least just talking football at the, not that these like exist anymore really, but the water cooler, right? Like everyone is into football when football is going well. Now, less so, pardon me, clearly when, things are not going well, like the last few years of, less, I guess, Cam Newton, but the Mac Jones, after you get through year one, it's Jones and Bailey Zappi. And, one of the, just to go off tangent from your question for a second, one of the craziest transformations that this season has brought me mentally, emotionally, psychologically, you name it, has been over the last few years. And I said this to someone the other day, like I would go into a Patriots game, never actually really believing they were going to win. And back-to-back 4-win seasons will do that to you, right? But I would go into games wondering, do I even want to watch this, or am I just going to put on Red Zone and look for the highlights along the way? Like, I don't think they're going to win this game. Didn't matter who they were playing. Whereas now, this year, and they've won 14 out of the last 15, this big playoff meeting coming up, obviously, there's never a game now that I believe they're going to lose. Doesn't matter who they're playing. I am going in obnoxiously confident, like the good old days. It's that hybrid, though, that meet me in the middle of back in the day with Tom Brady and 2 decades of dominance and the dynasty and all that. I was never really one of these people, but there were a lot of people we all know that were like, wake me when we get to the AFC title game. Like the regular season is just a formality. Who cares? I enjoy the process. I enjoy the ride. I enjoy the regular season. So I didn't go into that bucket, and this team is not worthy of that bucket because, again, this is just year one. But man, if things do go well this postseason, and well can be defined in a lot of different ways. I mean, heaven forbid they actually get to a Super Bowl, but even just potentially hosting an AFC title game, if the Bills go out and beat the Broncos, as I believe they do, they will, and if the Patriots beat the Texans, as I believe they will, this season is just so far and away over the top what anybody could have possibly dreamed that it's going to set up some pretty wild expectations going into next year with albeit a much, much harder schedule than what the Patriots had to deal with this year. But it's so much freaking fun. So going back to your question, I still feel like, and please, I know this is not Celtics related. By all means, people, jump in the comments and weigh in on this, because I am curious what the general Boston sports fan believes. I still feel like at our core, and when I say our, I mean Boston sports fans, I feel like at our core, it's still a baseball town more than it is anything else. And when the Red Sox are at the top of their game, and I know that's been kind of inconsistent in recent years, but when they are out there flirting with championships, like that 18 run when they were a juggernaut and nobody was even sniffing what they were putting out on the field every single day and cruising to the World Series there against the Dodgers, those were some emotional heights that even the Patriots with Tom Brady were not consistently reaching. When everything, and maybe it's because it's the summertime and the weather's better and the vibes are higher and everybody's just feeling great and you're not, in the doldrums of winter and blizzards and all of that stuff. Maybe time of the year, seasons actually do come into play with this. But man, when the Red Sox are hot, when the Red Sox are at their very best, it's hard for anybody to match that. And so to cycle this back to the Celtics, I actually think, as much as like we all love the Celtics and people listening and watching this show love the Celtics, and as many championships as the Celtics have won, I still feel like they're third. I still feel like it's Red Sox, Patriots, Celtics before you get to the Bruins, obviously, of sort of the emotional highs that come out of this city when things are at their height. But I don't know. Push back. What do you think?
I'd agree with that. I would just flip the Patriots and the Red Sox. I think the thing with the Patriots and the reason that 2018 run for the Red Sox got so much hype is because it was just expected that the Patriots are going to the Super Bowl. Like, it was just expected year in and year out that they were going to get there. Like, there was no real challenge standing in the way of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. It was just every year they're going to be hosting a championship game with the chance to go to the Super Bowl. That was the norm. Whereas with the Red Sox, it's kind of come a little bit sparingly. They've had down years. Obviously, we remember the Bobby Valentine year. Like, they were down years before that. They were cellar dwellers a couple times before that. So I think, yes, there is a big emotional tie to the Red Sox, but I don't think it matches what the Patriots provide. And I think we're seeing that this year where, yeah, and even the run the Red Sox went on this past season, like that September, like when they clinched against the Tigers, that was incredible. Fenway was buzzing, the whole city was buzzing, but just all this energy and this emotion around the Patriots, I think it's really showcasing. It's like, wow, we were spoiled for all that long, because it's easy to overlook that when you're in the moment. You're like, oh, this is great. We have the greatest quarterback of all time, greatest coach of all time. Like, this is great. You kind of take it for granted a little bit, though. So I think people were just expecting the Patriots to always be there, whereas with the Red Sox, it felt like you earned it a little bit more.
I think, though, if you go back to the original question, is like, I think right now, as it stands, the Jays are the kings athletically of Boston. Why? Boston's title town. They're the only guys that have won a title outside of Milton Williams, who doesn't really count because he didn't win it with the Patriots, right? So we can throw Peyton Pritchard in there, and we love Pritchard. Like, there's Derek White, obviously, but the Jays, because they've been here for their whole careers, been around all the playoff battles, especially with the Miami Heat over the years, getting through, beating the Mavs, hosting the Larry, like, they clearly are the cut above everybody else. I think they are the front runners for when you think of the Boston sports scene. I think you think of the Jays in the current iteration of everything first because of the Larry O'Brien trophy. My question is, if Drake, like, how far does Drake May need to take this team to eclipse that? I do think you'd have to win a Super Bowl, because now you're talking about, at that point it becomes the Jays, and this is just sucks, but the Jays are like old news. Like, oh yeah, that's cute. Well, now we have, this 23-year-old golden retriever who has an absolute rocket ship for an arm. That guy's the new king. Like, I think, it's a weird conversation to have. It's a great conversation to have, because like the Boston's had so much success recently as a whole in terms of athletics. I mean, the three of us have seen a cajillion championships, and you have like Jets fans that playoffs. Like, I'm just pointing this out. Sacramento Kings fans had to light the beam here, and that's like all they've had to root for the past like 20 years. So just to give her some perspective, but I do think the Jays, at the end of the day, to try to make this others related, they're still the kings of Boston. They're the only guys that have titles. That's it.
So I don't disagree with any of that in the sense that, they're the winners. They're getting their jerseys retired. They're going to be up in the rafters. They're, future Hall of Famers, both of them, all of these things. But I think in the way that the sports are covered, and again, it goes back to the whole NFL is king, football is king, because college football, I'll involve in this as well. It's not that basketball is like your, coverage stepchild. Like, that's baseball, that's hockey. Like, basketball is covered at a very, very high level as well, both pro and college. So, I mean, hell, like, any chance the major networks get to lead with something LeBron related, they're going to do it. So I'm not dismissing the notion that the Jays sit where they sit right now, but I don't think it would take much. And I don't mean this year, but I don't necessarily think it would take winning a Super Bowl locally for Drake May to pass the Jays, because people are obsessed with football, obsessed, more so than they are with basketball. I mean, ratings don't lie, right? So I think that, especially, and you hit on this being like the new young thing, and the Jays aren't even 30. It's not like they're old, but they are established. They are, Jason Tatum, when he's right, is a top 5 player in the NBA. Jaylen Brown this year is a top 5 to 10 player in the NBA. Drake May, though, is in the MVP conversation and may very well win the thing and may have this team sitting in a Super Bowl, win or loss, and is way ahead of schedule from where it was. And you're already getting, statistically, not in terms of what he's actually achieved, but statistically here in this singular season, those Tom Brady comparisons. Like, he's doing things on the field Brady never did. Look at the athleticism. Look at the numbers. Look at the historic trends, all of these things. People love football, man. And I love football. We all love football. I think that
we spent the first 10 minutes of like this conversation pre-show talking about what we were gambling on this weekend.
Right. Exactly. And it's, we're not sitting here making our NBA money line parlays. Now, part of that is the volatility in that sport. Teams that are double-digit favorites at home routinely lose. It's a pain in the ass. But man, I don't think it actually would take winning a Super Bowl for Drake May to locally, in terms of popularity, Q rating, whatever you want to call it, pass the Jays. I really don't. Now,
I think it should, but I don't think it will either. I agree.
God, I hate even doing this, and I wish you didn't have to in Boston, but I'll ask the question and then we can move on after a moment or two of not giving it enough time. Does race have anything to do with that in this city?
I don't think so.
You don't?
No, I don't think. I think when you're just looking at the player itself, the athlete itself, I don't think so. I think the biggest difference in this is the position, like in the sport. The sport's the biggest position. Again, like you said at the beginning, football is king. Like, that's just the reality. And it's not just here, that's across the country. And so I just think there's going to be more eyes on that in general. And not to mention, if Drake May, obviously he's got a very well, and I think the Jays do as well. All of them have very likable personalities, but you get so much Drake May content. It's like, oh, he's so wholesome. Every time I open like some sort of social media, it's him or his wife. Like, they're just the talk of everything. Like, that's just how it is. So I think
all that TV show now.
Yeah, she's got her own TV show. Like, that's just the attention that the NFL and that football brings. So I don't think that really matters, because right now it is the Jays, right? Like, they have that spot right now, and I think they should have it until there's a championship. But just because of the attention that comes with football, I think that's the biggest kind of differential in this conversation.
I would tell you that there's probably some of that involved with certain people. I'm not going to be the guy that says that it's not a factor for certain people. For certain people, it's not. For me, it's not. For you guys, it's not. But we can't ignore the fact that for some people, it definitely is. And if you can't acknowledge that, then you're just not reading the room right. But I think part of it is the fact that the quarterback is the most important position in all sports, right? In American sports, nobody is more popular than the quarterback. I don't care. I mean, you can barely name guys on the Red Sox. Like, I mean, the guys come out of the bullpen and you're like, who? I don't even know who this guy is, right?
Mhm.
And you see their faces all the time. Drake May's got a mask over his face, and we still know what he looks like because he's all over everything. As Justin said, he's all over social media. His wife's all over social media. There's a Drake May lover Instagram account that's probably got more guys that are more followers than the three of us combined on all of our social media platforms.
Which, by the way, just to play this fair down the line, everything you just said about Drake May is also true of Stephon Diggs. If you stop Stephon Diggs, it's not one of those like, oh, he takes his helmet off and you don't know who he is. Now, for someone who might be a little bit more anonymous, say a Kayshon Boutte, maybe. I mean, he's young. He's not super established. He's very early in his career. Stephon Diggs, you know who he is. He's a perennial 1,000-yard receiver. He's well accomplished in the NFL. He's a vocal guy, a guy who's been part of many great moments on the field. Obviously, some things off the field that you're used to seeing him, and not to mention a very public relationship with Cardi B, right? So he fits into the pop culture side of things as well. So I would just, to draw that comparison, it's not like boy, we all recognize Drake May because he's the quarterback, but nobody else fits that mold.
That's a fair point. I think that's fair. It's just the power of football and certain things. I think, you know what I mean? Like, it's the most popular sport in America. It's ridiculous how dominant the ratings are. Yeah. And when you have high profile status, and Steph Diggs for sure has that, you're going to have way more recognition. You know what I mean? Like, again, I think the city of Boston's special in certain ways because, like Peyton Pritchard can walk around and not need to take his wallet out. People are going to, bend over backwards to try and buy that guy, whatever, dinner, drink, whatever. Maybe Jordan Walsh, maybe not, maybe
NBA champion. He deserves it.
I know. I'm saying it's like, how far on the line do you go before they lose some recognition? Right. Baylor Shireman could probably walk around somewhat anonymously and nobody.
Well, but what you're talking about a guy in Pritchard who is more accomplished at this stage of his career, was a bigger part of that title-winning team than these other guys that were like barely played. May have taken on larger roles now, but at that point in time weren't making their bones.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Again, the conversation I think is mostly like popularity of NFL versus popularity of the NBA within the city of Boston, and we'll throw all of New England in there. Again, I think still at this moment in time, just to put a bow on this thing, is I do think the Jays are still the kings of Boston from an athletic standpoint, but Drake May is not far behind. And again, as you said, Kaufman, I'm not quite sure it'll take much to get him to that status. I don't think it'll take much.
No, he's coming fast. It honestly, winning a Super Bowl or even maybe just winning the MVP might be enough to get him there, or at least get him on even footing with those guys already. And I'm not saying that is fair, justified, right, any of these things, but just kind of, reading the greater room of the region and the amount that we're talking about Drake May and the amount nationally that we're talking about Drake May, I think that's kind of where we may be headed. But here's what we're going to do. For anyone that hasn't turned the show off already, we're going to take a quick break and then come back with, I promise, Celtics talk. Let's remind you, this show brought to you in part by our good friends over at Prize Picks. Whether you are starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard, right? It can be difficult. But in life and on Prize Picks, it just always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action, it never stops. And Prize Picks, Ev, lets you take control.
Yeah, Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million users on Prize Picks. You can be the next person to sign up and join this party with us here at CLNS Media. And I do this every week. It's the flex play. Sometimes on Friday, sometimes on Saturday. Today it's going to be on Saturday. And what this is again, Prize Picks invented this. The idea is if you can still cash out still win your money back, even if your lineup isn't perfect, which happens to me every single week. Kaufman, including last week, where once again I hit 2 out of 3. It's great. It's fine. I won my money back. I've had the same amount of money in my account for like 5 straight weeks because I just been 2 out of 3.
Okay, I'm not losing.
That's fine. That's fine with me. So with that being said, Koff, I got a little bit not creative here, but I'm trying to minimize risk, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a risk putting a lineup together. So with that being said, we're going to start with CJ Stroud in New England on a Sunday afternoon. And this is thanks to our friends over at Prize Picks who gave us a layup for this one. CJ Stroud, we're going more than 0.5 passing yards. So that's a layup. That's a freebie. It's a free square, as I call it. That's not a problem. Next portion of the lineup. RJ Harvey, rookie running back for the Broncos, is going more than 53.5 rushing yards against the Bills. The Bills have an atrocious rush defense. We're going to hammer that with RJ Harvey, who can break out one for one big long run and basically cut that thing in half. So I like that. And then for the third leg of our lineup here, Koff, we're going to dust off Curtis Samuel.
Ooh.
We're going to go more than 0.5 receiving yards. Basically has to have a catch.
Just a positive grab.
All he's got to do is catch the ball for a yard, and we're fine. So I think we're minimizing the risk potential here with this play. Flex play gives me 3x if I hit all 3, or 1x to get my money back if I hit 2 out of 3, which is fine for me. That's fine. I've been living in this space for over a month, and Prize Picks now has early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start and you win, you'll basically have the option to cash out right away and get your money put in your account and lay some more down another lineup for Prize Picks. You can get it before, again, the game is even finished, and getting your money, Kaufman, couldn't be any easier. In as little as 15 minutes, watch the money roll into your account, and Prize Picks uses Venmo. Easiest way, I think, to get your money out of your account is Venmo, but there's a bunch of other things. But at the end of the day, Kaufman, there's nothing easier than using Prize Picks.
So download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after playing your first for only $5. Again, download the Prize Picks app. Do it while you're listening to the show. The promo code CLNS. You get $50 in lineups after playing your first for only $5. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. So we've got Justin Turpin here with us from WEEI. And again, I know kind of a hodgepodge start to the show, which was probably more football than it was anything else. Certainly not a lot of Celtics. Let's talk about the modern day Celtics, fellas, who are 25-15, half game in front of the Knicks in second place now, and 4.5 behind the Pistons, who continue to play good basketball. Obviously, they're playing maybe a little more 500 of late, but in general, still a very good team at 29-10. One of those chasing the infamous 40-20, which the Celtics need to go 15-5 to hit that benchmark. And of late, we've seen they're in these games, but 2 out of the last 3 have not gone their way. 3 out of the last 5. Yeah, that we talked about it last time. The narrow loss against the Jokic-less Nuggets, should have won that game, lost by 4. You rebound well with a win over the Raptors. And as I recall, Jaylen Brown did play in that one. He had missed a previous one against the Raptors. And then, you come, well, you're still home at that point, finishing off the homestand. You lose to the Spurs, who got you by 5. Close game. You go on a start of a trip, which they're still on. It's a 4-gamer. Begins in Indiana against a wretched Pacers team, lose by a couple of points. We're in this stretch here, and they rebound with a win in Miami. It's a nice win. This stretch where Jaylen Brown, while he has been excellent this season, is not playing his best basketball of late, and is certainly very upset about that. It feels like every show I feel like I'm picking on the guy, and it's making our YouTube commenters believe that I hate him. I'm actually a big Jaylen Brown fan and supporter, but he's whining a lot. And right now it's about not getting a whistle. And look, if he always needs a TD Garden-sized chip on his shoulder, if that's what makes him great, then by all means keep it there. You do you. But at the moment, it is impacting his overall game. I think it's getting into his head a little bit, and we saw that even against that slow start in Miami before ultimately the Celtics, largely because of Anfernee Simons, won that one. But whereas it felt like every single game, guys, Brown's your leading scorer. Brown's your leading scorer. And of course, he still averages damn near 30 a game. He's the team's leading scorer. We're in this stretch right now where over the last handful of games, Brown 33, Pritchard 27, White 29, Pritchard 23, Simons 39. It's not consistently Jaylen Brown. Now, occasionally he's your leading assist guy or your leading rebounder. It's not like he's doing nothing out there. He's still playing some solid games for the most part. But I feel like we're in a little bit of a mid-season lull compared, obviously, to the off-the-charts performance throughout the first third or so of the year that we were getting out of Jaylen. Terp, we'll start with that going into this game against the Hawks that, as we sit here, is tonight. This is not going to be a preview of Atlanta because I know some people won't get around to listening to this, weekly podcast until after this game has already been played. But what have you seen of late from Jaylen that, concerns you, maybe?
Yeah, I think you hit it with the officiating and his frustration with the officiating. I think that's a bigger conversation surrounding the team itself. Just look at three of their last four losses. They've come out and blamed the officials, right? It was Jaylen. He did it before the Nuggets game, then he did it in the Spurs game, and then Joe Mazzulla did it with the illegal screen press conference. It's like, you don't want to be that team. And I think with Jaylen Brown specifically, I think he lets it get to him. And then he forces it. He tries too hard to go downhill and get a call, and he ends up with these aimless drives and these turnovers, and it ended up hurting the team. So I think that's one of the biggest things with him for now. And I also think, we're in January. Like, there's this inevitable lull that comes across the NBA season. And we've seen it for years. We saw it with the team last year, right? They played 500 basketball for a stretch of like 4 weeks in the middle of the season. Like, that's just kind of an inevitable part of the NBA season, especially with Jaylen, with how many minutes he's been playing, how many games he's been playing. So I think the officiating has been a big thing that's been frustrating him, and it's been forcing him to play a little bit differently because he's kind of going out of his way to go get foul calls and prove a point. And that's usually a good thing for them. Like, I think, he wasn't great against Miami, but what he did in the third quarter and how he was able to get to the line, that was good for them. And that really helped the offense get back on track. So I'm not saying it's totally a bad thing, but I think he is letting the officiating get to his head a little bit too much, where he just needs to go out and play within the game, which is what he's done this year. And it's allowed him to succeed so at such a high level this season.
I think the turnovers have been a huge problem. He's been turning the ball over a ton recently. He had 5 in that game against Miami. He had 7 in the game against Denver, 5 in the game against San Antonio. Like, he hasn't been as strong lately. Like, I know there are some bigger turnover games throughout the season, but he's averaging currently 4.4 a game this month, which is the worst of any month he's had so far this year. And that's kind of been some of the secret stuff to Jaylen. Is like some of the turnovers are him dribbling the ball off his leg or his foot, or he makes the wrong read or whatever. And some of them aren't live ball turnovers. Some of them, they go out of bounds, like kicks off his foot, goes out of bounds. They can reset their defense. I don't know. I don't have the number in front of me. I can't really track this, but it feels like most of them now are live ball turnovers, which is a problem for Boston. They don't get back in transition. Jaylen's hanging his head and they get dunked on the other end. It also gets highlighted mostly in that Miami game, where Miami, one of the best transition teams, you do it against Toronto, one of the best transition teams, and you have some problems. Look, the shot's going to come and go for Jaylen only because if he were able to sustain being the best mid-range shooter in the league for an entire season, that would be amazing. So the fact that he's not shooting the ball as well for a little bit of a stretch is fine with me. But a lot of it has to do with the way he's attacking teams at this moment. And teams are playing him a little differently. Now that he's gone through, the first couple of months of the season killing everybody, teams are sending 2 a little bit more. They're making him get rid of it, get off it a little bit earlier. And Boston is, recalibrating to that. But for Jaylen specifically, like, he just needs to attack a little bit quicker when it comes to the half court. Like, I think he's just, I don't want to say not trusting himself, because that's not the word. He's just not seeing it as fast as he was earlier in the year. And again, maybe that's because teams are playing him a little bit differently, so he has to process a little bit differently. But he's just not working as fast. And I think Kaufman, when it comes down to that, a lot of the times when he uses his athleticism to get by guys quickly, like, he's just sort of a force. But when he's trying to beat guys off the dribble and he makes his life a lot harder, those shots, they were going down early in the season. I mean, you go to that Clippers game, he dropped 50. And some of the stuff he was doing in the half court, you're laughing, you're falling over in your chair or off your couch or whatever, because of the degree of difficulty on some of the shots was nuts. I think now they're not going in as much, and that's kind of leading to a little bit of the frustration, the lack of foul calls, lack of maybe that's something to do with it too. But for me, the big thing is always going to be turnovers with him. And if he can mitigate that, the other stuff I don't really care about because he's so good at, the mid-range stuff has just been such a plus this year. You just got to keep the turnovers down, in my opinion.
If I'm going to attempt to spin any of this into a positive, obviously I'm confident that Jaylen's going to right the ship. He's going to get through whatever he's getting through, and he's going to be fine. And hopefully that coincides with a return for Jason Tatum as well, which, I think we all still believe is right around the corner. I think even potentially, I'm not closing the door on February as we sit here in mid-January, to be perfectly honest, guys. But the performances that they're getting around Jaylen, occasionally Simons of late, and he's getting, featured, showcased a little bit more. And I do want to talk more about him and just sort of the future of Anfernee Simons in the Celtics uniform. But Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, the guys that, you would expect. I know it's less of the Walshes, and, Garza's playing great. It feels like it's his turn right now. Obviously, Minot's missed time, so we haven't really talked about him. But, we've gone through this stretch of the season where it's like, okay, here's the Minot stretch, and there's the Walsh stretch, and, to some degree, the Ugo stretch. Now, again, I feel like we're in the Garza stretch. They are getting performances around some of the setbacks for Jaylen Turp that, have still led to, again, these close games. The Celtics, as mentioned, they've lost 3 out of 5. Could very easily be 5-0 in these games. All of those losses were winnable games. They were by a grand total of 11 points, those 3 losses. So what are you seeing elsewhere that gives you confidence about what Boston is doing on the whole?
I mean, I really like what we're seeing from the guards. I mean, the guards have been terrific. I know Peyton Pritchard and Anfernee Simons have had a couple down games in there, but over the last 20 games or so, really since the beginning of December, the guards have been outstanding. What they've been able to get from White, Pritchard, and Simons, that trio, it's like every night, and it might not jump out on the stat sheet, especially in the case of Pritchard. He'll have a quiet 14 points or whatever, but you look and he somehow has 6 or 7 assists. That's what they're doing, and I think Pritchard especially has played the role of the point guard just perfectly. The way he's creating for others, the way that he's getting to his spot and getting his shot. I don't think it's been talked about enough about how well he's played as a starting point guard this year. I think because obviously what Jaylen Brown's been able to do, and people love the story with Minots and, like you mentioned, the different stretches, the Ugos, the Jordan Walshes. I think people have kind of gravitated towards those, and it's not really looking at what they've gotten from Peyton Pritchard. And I think the same can be said about Neemias Queta. There were so many questions about their big man rotation coming into the year, and he's just been so consistent, night in and night out. You're not really worried about him. Of course, yeah, inevitably there has been games where he's struggled, but for the most part, he's come out every night and just given them a chance down low. And I think his rebounding has been overlooked. He's been a terrific rebounder for a team that was the biggest question entering the season. Who the hell was going to rebound the basketball? Jason Tatum was their best rebounder last year. And I think he'll go a long way in helping shore up some of their issues too. Because you mentioned the losing the games in the clutch. 80% of their losses have come in the clutch. And a lot of that has to do with their rebounding. They're getting out rebounded, letting up. I think it's a 70, I forget the number off the top of my head, but it's a ridiculously high offensive rebounding percentage for the opponents. Jason Tatum goes a long way in fixing that. He also goes a long way in fixing your offense because he is your closer, right? And I think the different coverages are starting to get to Jaylen a little bit. You guys mentioned that a little bit earlier, just how teams are guarding him. He was reading that well at the beginning of the year, but I think they're just mixing and matching coverages so much, it's kind of slowing him down a little bit. So I think it's a long-winded way of saying, you're getting contributions from other players. You're in every game. And by the way, one of the most clutch players in basketball and your closer over the last handful of years is hopefully coming back soon. And that's going to go a long way. So I think the one thing with the clutch losses that kind of annoy you is, one, it's a hallmark of a good team. Good basketball teams execute down the stretch, and the Celtics haven't been able to do that yet. But you can also look at it again. Tatum's coming back. You're not getting blown out. You are in every game. So I think you can look at it both ways. So I just think the contributions they're getting from up and down the roster from guys like Pritchard and Queta, who have been starting all year, that you probably don't talk enough about, is huge for what they're getting.
What do you think of?
Yeah, big thing. Well, the big thing for me, and that just to piggyback off the clutch time stuff, came out this week, and people have been talking about it. C's the worst defensive team in crunch time by a mile. It's just not great. What are they? 128. Their rating is 128, I think, defensively. per 100 possessions, which is just awful. Obviously, the offensive rebounding rate is one of the reasons why they give up that many points per 100 possessions, because when you get an offensive rebound, normally your shot is either at the rim or you kick it out to wide open three, and those are all daggers. So, we have to address at least the fact of like where they're failing at the end of games. It's not necessarily their offense that's failing them, although they have recently, I think, reverted to some bad habits in a couple of these games, specifically like the San Antonio one. But the other part of that, and you go part of that San Antonio game is Wemby is insane and hit like an insane shot that only Wemby can really hit, and their defense has really been failing them at the end of the game. So it's again, what you can chalk up the 3 out of 5 losses in 3 out of 5 to a few things. It's January, they're missing guys, they're covering them differently, like all these things. And that's like, what does it really highlight? It highlights the fact that Boston's, room for error is very, very, very small. And the fact that they're, still have a shot at 40-20 is a remarkable accomplishment and is a testament to everybody in the organization, from the coaching staff, the front office, and the players. Like, it's to be where they are right now is unbelievable. I think it's just been frustrating, again, the 3 out of 5, because everything's been so good that losing 3 out of 5 is like, what's going on? But at the same time, like, a lot of teams are going to go through this particular type of stretch, especially the Eastern Conference. And given the beginning of the year and the offseason, like, this is still a very, very good basketball team that's way ahead of where they really should be.
We remind you there are a lot of great Celtics podcasts available to you across the CLNS Media Network, of course, including this one, Celtics Beat. So make sure you rate, review, subscribe, download wherever you get your podcasts, audio versions, of course, Apple, Spotify, Pandora, Spreaker, you name it, but we are out there as well. Video on the CLNS Media All Access page on YouTube, with so many other great C's podcasts and a number of people that have contributed to this show along the way as well. So make sure, obviously, you go leave comments. We like to read them, like to respond to some of them, and even bring some of them to air, which something tells me after this show, we're going to have a few to be able to pick from. But we're going to take a quick break, tell you that today's show is powered in part by Omaha Steaks. New year, new you. It's time to start the new year off with some healthy, delicious meats, and Omaha Steaks is the best way to stay on track. Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. Honestly, I'm starting to drool just while I'm reading this. With Omaha Steaks, you know exactly what you're getting. USDA certified tender steaks, premium proteins, elegant sides, and a decadent, indulgent dessert. Shop this season's top gourmet gifts at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners, that's right, you out there, you get $35 extra off with the code Celtics at checkout.
It's Patriots, actually. It is Patriots.
Patriots?
Oh, yeah. It's for
Even
the whole
on
network.
Podcast?
Yeah. Still Patriots.
All right, well, the promo code's Patriots then.
Yeah. But like, just to give everybody a little bit, we are working diligently with Omaha Steaks to send us a package so I can put on a cooking display for everybody, because I got this Viking stainless steel skillet pan for Christmas that I would love to get a nice like center cut filet and just sear that real quick, high heat, avocado oil, get that thing ripping, get a nice sear on that, turn the heat down, butter baste it, a little bit of rosemary in there, get that aromatics going, and then finish by baking in the oven for just a couple of minutes, just to, get the cook all the way through. I'm waiting desperately. Omaha Steaks, send me a care package.
Send it over. I'm going to Ed's house.
I'll come to you. I'll make this thing. I don't even care.
I love that.
But, like, I want to be able to tell the world, after cooking with some of the amazing options they have, like how unbelievable your meals can be thanks to our friends over at Omaha Steaks. The Omaha Steaks offered unrivaled quality and variety, and every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. Every steak is perfectly aged to maximize tenderness and hand cut by master butchers in America's heartland. Grass-fed, grain-finished beef has more marbling for exceptional flavor in the choice of steakhouses and professional chefs around the world.
Pretty good. Save big on gourmet gifts and healthy eating with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com, and for an extra $35 off, use code Patriots at checkout. That's right. All Pats on the brain. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code Patriots. There's something, I don't know if it's the new computer he got or the new mic or the internet or the world. Something is against Ev over the last, I don't know how many weeks. He's still here lurking in the shadows producing the show, but we can't see him or hear him anymore. And that's bothersome. I don't like that at all.
It's technology, man. It's not advancing as much as people think.
No, not like the people say. I had alluded to an Anfernee Simons discussion, and I want to spend a moment on that because, obviously the trade deadline is, what as we sit here, about a month and a half away, if I recall. I think it's March
less than a month.
5th.
Less than a month. February 5th.
Is it February 5th? Okay.
February 5th. Yeah, less than a month.
Oh, that's right, because we're only, I saw somebody tweet it, we're like 9 games away, something like that.
Getting close.
Obviously, it's decision time for Brad Stevens and for Mike Zarin, that entire front office here coming up. And I'm scrolling to find a tweet by our guy Bobby Manning, who joined us on the show recently, and he had put out a quote tweet of his appearance on with us weeks back, highlighting a conversation around Anfernee Simons and his impact on the team and whether or not he should be someone that, ultimately sticks around long term. And what I saw Bobby, I'm going to pick on Bobby for a second. What I saw Bobby tweet was, God, I want to read it verbatim too, because I don't want to put words in his mouth before I dump all over the take. There's no fun in that. All right. So he was talking about, again, just Simon's potential value to this team and the way that he can contribute. And obviously what we've seen of late, the 39-point game and yada, yada, yada. And scrolling through his tweets, he said, I'm going to have it for you, I promise. All right. So he was quote tweeting someone, said, Anfernee Simons on a team-friendly deal is a piece on the next Celtics title team. And Bobby said that should be the focus, not ducking the tax. This new ownership group has a big decision ahead in less than 3 weeks, only 9 games until the deadline. This was a tweet from last night. I feel like Bobby and anybody else who is highlighting the tax and the spending surrounding Anfernee Simons is actually missing the bigger picture of the entire Anfernee Simons discussion. To me, and please push back, disagree if you feel so inclined, to me, the conversation around Anfernee Simons is not whether or not he has the ability to help you or can score off the bench, provide that extra punch even after Tatum returns, whether or not the Celtics should consider investing in him and what that does to various tax penalties, aprons, that type of thing. The conversation around Simons is he is an asset, a tradable asset that, given what he makes, which is damn near $30 million this year on an expiring contract, he is really, realistically, your only path to acquiring a big man who is actually a good basketball player. To, again, put alongside Keita, Garza, guys like that. If you hang on to Simons, you hang on to that asset, and whether he walks for nothing or you do re-sign him and spend, whatever it is on this quote-unquote team-friendly deal and he's part of your next iteration, fine. I'm an Anfernee Simons supporter. But you have no other realm where you can add to this team, where you can build, where you can get a big. It's not like that money, even if you don't sign him, it doesn't just come off the books and it, here's $27 to $30 million that you can go and spend. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You have this tradable asset that you can bring in a piece that I'm not advocating for a rental, but you can go out and get a piece that can be under contract in theory, a Claxton, a Zubac. So these are the names we just keep bandying about. Someone who can be under contract, who is sub 30 or around 30 for multiple years and can be a big man that can help you. And that is such a glaring, as we've talked about, area of weakness on this team that if you're going to part with anything to get it, in all likelihood, that's Simons. This isn't about spending. This is about trying to get something that can help you in a different area of need.
Yeah, I do agree that obviously the biggest hole on this roster is the center position, but I do think the tax is worth mentioning because they're roughly 12 million over the luxury tax line right now, and if they stay here where they're at right now, they're going to end up paying 40 million. And I think what has everyone been talking about since the summer? It's the ownership group, right? It's like, look what they did with the second apron. I think for the most part, people have a good grasp of why they made the moves that they did over the offseason. But still, it's been such a hot topic. What is this ownership group going to do? Because you really haven't been able to judge them pretty fairly for what they may able to do right so far, because obviously what they did over the summer was going to happen, right? You can't live in the second apron, but now you can judge them for what they are and the moves that they make. So I think following what they do with the tax is worth kind of monitoring. But yeah, I would agree that, they need to shore up and get a center. Like that's the biggest issue. As good as Luka Garza has played, I don't think anyone really trusts him going into what you hopefully think can be a long playoff run. So I do think there are other alternatives, though. Like, I wonder if you look at a guy like Sam Hauser, and people are always willing to overpay for shooting. Like, that's just how the NBA is, especially a guy who has never shot below 40% from three at any level he's played at. People love that type of scoring. And look at his defense, too. I don't think he gets enough credit. Joe Mazzulla will tell anyone that asks him about him, they'll never say anything about Sam Hauser's shooting. He's an elite scorer, an elite shooter. He'll never say anything about it. He's always going to point out his defense. And I think part of that is true. I think he is a very underrated defender. But I wonder if you look at a guy like Sam Hauser, just given how the younger guys have evolved. I know it's different skill sets, but Ugo, Jordan Walsh, Taylor Shireman, you have this surplus of wings right now that might make Sam Hauser more movable than Anfernee Simons. Because if you take away Anfernee Simons, and I know that you run a risk, right? Because you have Simons' bird rights if you hold on to him, but he's an unrestricted free agent. So he has his pick. Like if he wants to go out and be a number one again somewhere else, he can. But I don't think he's going to be making the 27 million he is now. And I don't think it's really crazy to think that he could be closer to the mid-level. Like I really don't. I think his market in the league was reflected over the summer, where the Celtics were shopping him all summer. And there were no suitors. There were no biters. And I think that kind of reflected his standing in the league and how he's viewed. So I wonder, there's no doubt he's going to be in for a pay cut. And I just wonder how significant that pay cut is. And if you're looking at the Celtics right now, like, yeah, if you take away Anfernee Simons, then what about your guard depth? Like, what are you going to do there? Who's going to slide up there and behind Derek White and Peyton Pritchard? I just think given what you have with your wings, a guy like Sam Hauser may be more tradable. And the Celtics think very highly of him. They really like what he brings, like on both ends of the floor, his spacing, especially with Jason Tatum. I think that's an important part of this as well. Him and Jason Tatum are one of the best two-man lineups the Celtics have. Like that, they're so efficient together, just with the gravity Tatum creates and, the Sam Hauser's ability to space the floor. Like that is something that can't be overlooked. But I just think with what you have at wings and the surplus that you have, maybe a guy like Hauser might be more movable than he was before. And that's somebody that, is under a team-friendly deal, someone that will get you below the tax and can get you a good player as well. So I do look at that as a potential candidate to move as well.
The ongoing joke, years-long joke around Celtics supporters, especially from people that are critical of Celtics fans, is that we have a tendency to fall in love with the role players and our own guys and overvalue them and all of that. And I would say I have, like anybody else, been guilty of that along the way with certain players.
Right.
But I mean, I like Sam Hauser as much as anybody. I think he's on a very good contract for what he brings you. I would also drive Sam to the airport personally if it meant you were getting a good return. Thing is, whereas Anfernee Simons, again, is making $27 million and just takes you to a whole other bracket of player that you're capable of acquiring, Sam Hauser's in the midst of a 4-year, $45 million deal. In the scope of the NBA, the guy makes nothing. Right. So what are you going to get for him? That's what I go back to. I mean, you might have a deal that includes both Simons and Hauser, but Hauser by himself or Hauser with a draft pick, like, in order to, again, make the money work to get a quality player, Sam Hauser's not doing it by himself. The contract isn't getting you anything that is really going to help you, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think that's what the thing with Simons too, because I keep going back to the summer, and maybe that's not fair because he's really embraced the role. His defense has steadily improved, and obviously he looks more comfortable, especially as of late over the last month and a half. He's been fantastic. And maybe I kind of revert back to the summer. Maybe it's not fair. Maybe it's like maybe the standing on him has changed, but there was just no suitors. And I guess the conversation will become, what is the trade that you're getting for Anfernee Simons? Because if you can go out and get an established big and somebody that can contribute for not only the short term, but for the long term as well, and somebody that fits the mold of what this team's trying to do, absolutely you're going to do it. But if you're doing it just to do it and just to get a body, I don't know if it's worth it. Like, I just don't know if it's worth bringing in kind of this bargain big because no one really is interested and, get parting ways with that scoring. I don't know. It's a delicate balance, but if there is somebody that can contribute in the short and the long term that you can get in and bring into this team to contribute to the next title contending iteration of this team, or that could be this year, depending on the trade deadline. Like, I don't know. It has to fit the short and long term needs. And I just think if you're dumping them just to dump them, that's not the right move, just with the scoring he can bring. And personally, I'd love to see him next to Tatum. I think the skill set that he provides could fit really well with Jason Tatum, especially coming off the Achilles, like, being that guy that can create for others, his playmaking, I think that can be really important.
Yeah, I just wonder if at that point you're putting too much pressure on Jason Tatum. Thinking about next year, that's a different situation. But if you're looking to actually make some noise this year in what looks to be a wide open Eastern Conference where you are positioned to potentially be able to contend, maybe not win a championship. There are some juggernauts there in the West, but at least in terms of, reaching the NBA Finals, representing the East, something that was not on anybody's, realistic timeline here for the spring and summer of 2026. To do that, if you're not improving your big man situation, other than the mentality of like, guy returns from injury and that's like an acquisition, I don't know what realistically we can expect to get from Jason Tatum. In terms of all the rebounding and the rim protection and all the things that he did so well when fully healthy.
And I think that's a point that people are missing, right? I think people keep thinking, oh, Jason Tatum's coming back. Jason Tatum's coming back. Yeah, that's great. And Jason Tatum in itself, just being on the floor, will be a difference maker for the Celtics. But he's not going to be averaging 28, 10 rebounds, whatever, like the ridiculous numbers he put up in the past right away. That's just not going to happen. Like, first of all, he's probably going to be on a minutes restriction when he comes back. Second of all, he's going to have to relearn his body, relearn how he was seeing the floor. And I think that was one of the most important things he was doing last year. Everyone's going to look at the scoring with Jason Tatum, but how he was rebounding the basketball. He was their best rebounder. We said that earlier. His assist as well and his playmaking was another level last year. It was the best we've seen in his career. It's just how he was seeing the floor. And now it's been, what? It'll be almost a year by the time he comes back, a little less than a year, like
sure.
9 months there. Like, he hasn't seen the basketball floor, like the basketball court like that. His court vision's kind of going to be different. Like, he has to relearn his body. He has to relearn kind of how to see the game. Like, this is going to be a gradual kind of step forward. And that's why I think any minutes he gets on the floor this year are so important, because you get all that rust knocked off and you come back ready for next year. Like, I think that was here's the thing where people were the expectations of this team were so much different at the beginning of the year. And now them playing so well, they've kind of changed. And now it's like, that shouldn't change how people view Jason Tatum and what he could be capable of when he's coming back. Like, as long as he gets on the floor and knocks off some of that rust, that's a positive. But to expect him to come back and just be Jason Tatum right away is so unfair to him, and it's so unrealistic. Like, that's just not going to happen. So I'd agree that you need to go get a big, and I think when it comes to Simons, it would just depend on who it is. Like I said earlier, if you're just getting a big to kind of move off the contract and bring in a body, I don't think it's necessarily worth it. That said, I don't necessarily believe in the long term with like what they've gotten from Luka Garza. Like, he's been great, but if your goal is to win the Eastern Conference, which I don't think is off the table, then it would have to be a little bit different.
Let's take a quick break. Tell you that today's show is powered in part by Ethos. When you bring a child into the world, your perspective changes overnight. Believe me, I can speak to that a few times over. Suddenly, you are thinking years ahead about childcare, school, the milestones that you can't wait to see. And for me, part of loving my family meant thinking about their future, even in the uncomfortable ways. That's why I recommend life insurance through Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies as low as $30 a month. As of March 2025, roughly a year ago, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. Ethos has a 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 3,000 reviews. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/all32. That's ALL32. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get your free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/all32. That is ethos.com/all32. ethos.com/all32. Again, ALL32. Application times and rates may vary. Back here with Justin, and again, Ev, we had for a little more than half the show before technology did him in, but he is still in the back listening to us, if you will. We'll wrap here shortly because I know we're sitting around an hour at this point in time here, Turp. But this upcoming stretch, we've hit a lot of bigger picture thoughts surrounding the Celtics, obviously, and the personnel and potential future moves, all of that. As we sit here at this moment, trade deadline 9 games away, as we've highlighted, at Atlanta tonight, at Detroit, obviously a far superior team on Monday. This Hawks team, by the way, as we know, not far removed from dealing Trae Young. There's no Kristaps Porzingis, big surprise. He's unavailable to play in this one. I do feel badly for what he is going through, but man, the Hawks are getting the full Porzingis experience. And then back home for just a game against the Pacers, who you should beat. I know lost to them last time, but should beat. Then it's 2 more on the road, back-to-back Friday, Saturday, Brooklyn and Chicago, which takes us to a week from tonight. So it's a busy stretch, handful of games here. Will in all likelihood be back with you after the next 3, maybe 4 games. We'll try and come back to you before the Friday game to preview that home and home, or not home and home, but 2-game back-to-back. What are you looking for, be it from the team or any individuals, over these next 5-6 games?
I mean, these are games, with the exception of Detroit, that they should be favorites in all of these games. I would think, looking at the schedule, you should be. I know Brooklyn's been playing well, but they're not going to be underdogs against Brooklyn. I mean, they've been playing better, but I think they should be favorites in all these games. 2017. Yeah, that's exactly. They've been playing better than not well, like I said, but I think they should be favorites in pretty much all of these games. And this is a good opportunity for them to build some momentum. Like the Knicks, man, they can't get out of their own way. I mean, losing to Sacramento the other day, what's happening there? They were 10-point favorites and they lost to Sacramento. The Knicks, you can build some ground there. I think it's kind of with the clutch things. Another thing, I think we might have mentioned this earlier. Just when you're dropping these winnable games, it hurts you in the standings because they very well could be so much closer to Detroit. They could be way more games ahead of New York. If 6 of those clutch games go your way, think about how much different things are. So I think they're really close, but I just like to see them continue, the dominance that we saw a little bit earlier in the year. You mentioned a little bit with the lull that they've hit recently, specifically in the clutch games. Get back to that execution, really just stack some wins here because this is a really good chance to do it. And with the trade deadline, I just look for guys like Anfernee Simons to not be bothered by it, right? Just come out, continue to do what you're doing. And he talked about it in the locker room last week. Just, it's the NBA. He's used to it. He's been in trade rumors since his second season.
Sure.
This is a whole thing, but as long as I want to see him just keep playing his game, and I want to see them stack some wins here because they have a good chance to do it. And I think this is now, we're almost halfway through the season. I think tonight would be the 41 game. That's the halfway point. You got a real chance here to really start building up on wins here, and hopefully Jason Tatum comes back. So take advantage of the soft schedule here, and don't let guys like Anfernee Simons or maybe even Sam Hauser, don't let the trade deadline kind of get in the way of their process in their games here.
Who's the next, role player cycle here? Is it going to be this continuation of Garza? Are we going to get an elongated Ugo moment? Because that hasn't necessarily happened in the same consistency as some of those other guys. Or, do we revert back? Does Walsh burst back on the scene?
I think it should be Jordan Walsh. I think he's been great. He was terrific the other night off the bench. I know all the conversation was about Anfernee Simons, but Jordan Walsh was great. And I really like what he gives them just defensively. Like the turnovers they're forcing have gone significantly down since he came out of the starting lineup. Like I think it should be Jordan Walsh, but I think someone who could be knocking on like a really increased opportunity is Baylor Shireman. I know he only played like 3 or 4 minutes the other night, but he's been getting a little bit more run recently. Obviously got the Wemby assignment. He got it for some of the game. Him and Jordan Walsh are splitting that. I think we're getting closer and closer to a Baylor Shireman type of run here where he deserves it, man. I think, you're looking at him and you're looking at the stat sheet and it's not going to jump out. It's not. The numbers are not going to be flashy. You're not going to be like, oh, wow, Baylor Shireman played great. But if you actually watch the games, he's picking his pockets perfectly. Pockets of the game where he can impact a run, whatever it may be, and just impact winning. And I think he's done a terrific job with that. And even if he plays 3 minutes the other night, like Joe Mazzulla doesn't miss those pieces, those pockets of the game that he has that impact. So I think we could be getting closer and closer to kind of a Baylor Shireman type of run here, but I think it should be Jordan Walsh. And I'm excited to see what happens when Josh Minot comes back. Obviously he's been dealing with the sprained ankle, had a couple of DNPs before then. Like, what are they going to do with him? Like, that's another one that I'm kind of interested in seeing because for a while it looked like he was your third center.
Yeah.
Or your backup center, rather. And then Garza reemerged, and we haven't really seen much of Minot. So kind of interested to see what happens with him when he comes back. So the fun thing about this season, though, is just the unpredictability has given so many storylines, right? Like, we're sitting here like, who's going to be the next player to go on this run? Like we've had Minot, we've had Garza, we've had Ugo in stretches. Like who's it going to be? And that unpredictability, I think, one, it's a competitive advantage because if we're here sitting and talk about it, we watch every games. You can only imagine what the scouts are thinking when they're only watching a handful. Like it's that level of unpredictability is fun for the storylines and fun for just the competitive advantage. So Joe Mazzulla hinted at it at the beginning of the year. He was saying like, hey, we're going to have a different starting lineups. We're not going to have a set rotation. And obviously that hasn't totally come to fruition where they've settled on starting lineups again for certain pockets. And you kind of know the rotation and what it's going to be, but just, the different minutes and all that has been interesting to watch. It's been a fun storyline.
Do you believe that Shireman is a piece? And I asked that knowing full well that, if I had asked you that question a year ago about Jordan Walsh, you would have been skeptical. I mean, a lot of people were right. You had written off Jordan Walsh going into this year and all of a sudden gets an opportunity, starts consistently. And now we're looking at him as someone that, can be a rotational player on a championship contender. How are you feeling about Shireman?
I just think the skill sets of him, Ugo, and Jordan Walsh are all so similar that it's going to be tough to kind of hold on to all three of them in the long term. You know what I mean? Like, I think Jordan Walsh is their best defender, and they're all knocking down their open shots, which is a big thing. Like, but you don't really look at any of them necessarily as a shooter. I know Baylor kind of was in college, but you don't really look at them as shooters. Jordan Walsh is shooting the lights out of the ball this year, and all of them are making their shots when they've been called upon. But I just think the skill sets between the three are so alike that eventually you're going to have to settle on two of them. And I would think that's Jordan Walsh and Ugo Gonzalez, but who knows? Because we're talking about a relatively small sample size for Jordan Walsh. I mean, I know it's been about a quarter of a season now because he was kind of out of the rotation for the first quarter of it. But that's in the grand scheme of things, that's kind of a small sample size. So Baylor Shireman could have a Jordan Walsh-like run in the third part of the season or in the final quarter of the season. Like, you don't really know, but I just think the skill sets between those three are so similar that I'd have a tough time envisioning them hold on to all three of them.
All right. Well, I feel badly that Ev is in the background and going on much longer without him, so we're going to make sure that we have him back with us here to at least start the next show next week. But Justin Turpin, who is on Twitter at Justin M. Turpin, of course, a writer for WEEI, does a great job covering the Celtics, chimes in, as you can tell already, on other teams as well. We are all counting down the moments until we get to watch Patriots, Texans, and Foxborough, and hopefully a weather game. That would be fun for a dome team coming from the South, playing in the, albeit afternoon, won't be as cold as it will be at night, but nevertheless, with the 3 p.m. kickoff, it could be pretty nasty out there at Gillette, and I know we're hoping it is. But more than anything else, hoping we have a Patriots game still to talk about after that one and stretch this really fun season as Drake May climbs the ranks of national and local popularity. But for Evan Valenti, I'm Adam Kaufman. We want to remind you, check out CLNS, the All Access page on YouTube for all the great content available to you across many Celtics related podcasts and NBA podcasts and a lot of great Patriots focused podcasts as well. The team has been killing it from down in Foxborough all season long. And, of course, the audio version. Download, rate, review, subscribe, wherever you get your podcasts. Justin Turpin, thank you so much for hopping on with us again, man. We'll bug you again real soon.
My pleasure. Anytime. Go Pats.
All right. For Turp, Ev, I'm Adam. We'll see you later.